What's good, Academy Nation? It's your boy Cass here, coach of your Detroit Red Wingulls, and welcome to the playoffs. We are in the playoffs for RGBL season 15. We have a rematch of last week. Well, I did say this was a potential redo, and it turned out this was always going to be a rematch, regardless of who won. Because based on how these other team matches up, we were going to be 4th and 5th place regardless of anything else. Regardless of who won, if we swept, if we didn't, like anything, we were going to be the last two. So last week's match really didn't matter at all. But we're going to have to make something great happen if we want to reach semifinals, because we did lose last week to this team, and we're going to have to do some work to come back. I said it last week, but this is a rough matchup for me, and unfortunately, I did not prepare for Zapdos as much as I needed to last week. It just caused problems, and it was only clicking U-turn. We didn't even get to see its other moves, so I also don't like this being our first match in the playoffs, because we are on a 2-game losing streak, and we just lost to this team last week, which doesn't help my confidence, but we're still going to try our best. And all that aside, that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean anything, really, especially since we have everything on the line this week, and that is what we just have to do. We have to make good prep, we have to play better, and we got to try for a win. Regardless, here are the teams once again. The Rock Eaters have Terastal Terapagos, Tinglu, Goldingo, Zapdos Galarian form, Slitherwing, which is Terra Fire if it chooses to do so. Whimsicott is the other Terra Captain with Terra Fairy, Ground, and Steel. Quillfish, Monkey Dory, Lantern, and Dedenne are the roster that they have. You can see the speed tiers right there on the screen, and as we said last week, this is a pretty middle ground speed tier for this team. That's kind of problematic that we figured out last week, because I have more balanced speed tiers as opposed to these guys. It also limits our options when it comes to dealing with choice scarfers. They're probably going to want some sort of priority on their side, which is reliable in Aqua Jet on Quillfish, unreliable in First Impression on Slitherwing, and Fake Out on Monkey Dory. And that's probably why we saw Quillfish last week, because it's easily used as a priority user, especially because it's paired with a good ability. So let's talk about what they're going to be bringing this week, and if they decide to change anything, we'll see. And that's my first point. I don't really think they need to change much of what they brought last week. I think that was probably their best 6 that they could have brought. It worked well against my team, but they may realize they won't get away with Zapdos like they did last week, and they need something else to rely on. So here's a little bit of what I expect to see this week. Terapagos comes again. As I last week, opted for Resto Chesto, and that was there to keep longevity. I expect it to come once again, maybe with a little bit of a different set. My ideas would be heavy duty boots to keep Terra Shell activated, which will reduce damage at full, or they could embrace a full offensive Terapagos with choice specs running, or run a bulky set with 4 attacks and Assault Vest. Likely it wants Terra Storm, Earth Power for Iron Treads, Dark Pulse for Zoroark, and a final move slot of its choice. Could be Rapid Spin for spinning, since this is a solid spinner as well. And I do expect that role, especially with my many Stealth Rocks users. Now, we didn't bring any last week. Doesn't mean that we wouldn't bring any this week. And they have to be prepared for that, especially because we saw a lot of switching in the last week's match. So they're going to be thinking in the back of their minds, hey, he has some good Stealth Rocks users that could come in and set up on us. We might want to run Rapid Spin and Heavy Duty Boots, which would be great, because that would limit what Terapagos can do, because a deadlier item could be a problem. Zapdos is a staple for this team. It comes again this week, and it's really good. No surprise, because of its typing. 100% is going to be Scarfed again. There's no reason you would switch it up and run anything else. You could opt for Trailblaze, but at that point, it doesn't really matter if we get the right things in, and we can force it out reliably without a choice scarf. So I think it runs choice scarf again this week. It can pretty much get away with clicking Close Combat or Brave Bird pretty freely, but in the case of last week, it really just needs U-turn, I guess, which was sad. It almost has to run knockoff in its final move slot to deal with my not fully evolved Pokemon, but it definitely could be the lead option again this week, because it's a good lead option, and Scarf users are a great lead option, as we've seen throughout the season. I know they didn't have a great turn 1 last week, but that probably will not deter them from leading Choice Scarf U-turn, because I still think it ended up working out well for them. Whimsicott wasn't needed for the strategy, and going was unfortunate, but they had what they needed to and they pivoted well. So I don't think that's going to be something. They might switch to something else, which could be better for us. But I do see that Zapdos is a good lead option, and I definitely could see it coming again as a lead this week. Whimsicott comes again for speed control. It wants to have a good matchup against Darkrai, but I've made it this week so it does not. Its Terra doesn't even save it this week. We did see Terra Ground last week, which in preview, which may be there as a way to deal with Darkrai, but then again, it would have to be max special attack and probably choice specs to threaten a KO. We could see Terra Fairy, as I mentioned last week in the team builder, to boost Moonblast so that Whimsicott can focus on support and not have to be so invested, because that would give it a little bit more power it needs to KO Darkrai. I feel like Stun Spore has to be on this moveset somewhere for speed control. It may opt to do 2 attacks and Sunny Day to pair with Slitherwing to set it up for photosynthesis, and that's always something we have to keep in our mind, because that's just a really good pair for this team. I could see Moonblast, U-turn, Sunny Day, Stun Spore as a set, but that just depends on what they want to do with it this week. We didn't get any information on it because it died the first turn, so we have no idea what it could be, but there's speculation, and I think I've got it mostly figured out. It likes it wants to be max speed, so it can outspeed Zoroark, which they would have to be worried about after last week, because Zoroark actually did some work and was a good bring. So they probably want max speed to deal with Zoroark. I do think Quillfish comes again this week. They want that guaranteed priority in case of Unburdened Hawlucha or Darkrai if either one of them would get out of hand. Intimidate's also great because it stops my physical attackers. Poison's a great type too. It threatens Clefable, it stops Arboliva, which are 2 really good defensive options this week. It also doesn't mind my other Terra captains as well, because they also could be Fairy Terra, and that would be good against them, but it's going to be mostly a great support to Zapdos since it doesn't like fairy types. We saw a more offensive set last week, and I definitely expect something similar this week with Aqua Jet for priority, Gunk Shot and Liquidation for stab, and Flip Turn for pivoting, which Monty likes to do, as we saw last week. Goldingo is nice for pivoting around, and I think it pairs really well with Zapdos, and probably why they were drafted together. Steel Stab absolutely wants to show up this week on my fairy types. It also stops status conditions, which mildly concerned, because that's one of the best ways to deal with Ting Lu, which basically requires some sort of status to be doled out to deal with it. It also has a setup option, but I'm not sure they really have the moveset to do that, and they don't have really the stats they need to be a setup set for us this week. We just have a good matchup into Goldingo, especially with Darkrai being around, and I don't think they want to try to set up because Darkrai could pretty easily get through that. We saw that it opted for coverage moves last week as it set, which might mean that they opt for more of a wall breaker set. I would expect to see Make It Rain, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, Focus Blast for Darkrai. That's probably what they had last week, and I get an ad while I'm listening to music. That's great. I love it. Sorry about that. But I would expect that. I definitely would expect them to run the 4 attacks and do something similar to last week. I don't know if it had Focus Blast. It probably did, let's be honest. But it is going to be slower than Darkrai unless it is Scarfed, and then even then, yeah, it's not too much of a problem. We also have to note that it was specs last week. That's why it was doing a lot of damage. I know I said that in the video, and they ran a lot of choice items. So it may opt to do the same thing to try to be an offensive wall breaker. As I said, I feel like that's a good role for Goldingo if it's going to come. It's got a good typing to pair with offense because it can switch in a little bit more safely. So they might try to do that this week, and I think it comes again. It's just a good mon for them. It's not got the best matchup, but it pairs well with Terapagos and Zapdos, and I think that's why it comes. I think Ting Lu is the swap this week. I think that's the one thing that changes. I feel like it almost has to come, and I said that last week too. It is a menace as a phaser. It has great walling capabilities that make it hard to deal with. It likely means it has some sort of hazards this week, which could be really good for them to try to shut down my ways to deal with their really aggressive switching. They may think I want to bring more offense this week, and this is a counter to that. And because it's just so bulky and has a great ability to stop special attackers too, this thing can be a problem, and we just have to be wary of it if we see it in team preview. I was a little surprised it didn't show up last week, a little relieved it was not there last week, but I do think it has a good matchup for our team, and I definitely could see it coming again this week. And I feel like that's probably the best switch if you're going to switch anything out. The other brings, yeah, Monkey Dory could come. I said it last week. It's another Choice Scarf user. That's probably its primary option. It's great to deal with Darkrai that way because it does get Focus Blast. That washes my speed tiers and could be their answer to speed if they want to do absolutely send it with 2 Choice Scarf users that are outspeeding pretty much everything on my team. So that could be an option for them too. We do say that Zapdos is better because Zapdos is better. It's just good typing, and the offense is great this week for us. Monkey Dory comes if my opponent got a copy of my strategy this week. And they didn't, and they realized I didn't really prep for it. Because I'll be honest, I don't have a great way to deal with Monkey Dory. Because I didn't really expect it to come, but I have some answers that hopefully can check it, at least enough that it's not going to be a problem for us. The Dene comes to spread paralysis, but it's probably not going to come. Focus Sash set could be an interesting set to try to run Endeavor. We've seen that before, but we have answers to it, so hopefully that's not a problem for us. I'll check that again to make sure it doesn't get Endeavor Quick Attack, because that might be an issue, but we'll check. We'll double check. Could be a niche set. I don't think he wants to run a niche set this week. Lantern feels like the drop spot for this week. It's still a nice option to deal with Suicune and defensive walls, things that's natural bulk. And especially if they want to give choice specs again, that was a good option. It did well. I've always thought Lantern was kind of a Pokemon, but when you don't really have anything good to go against it, I mean, we do have Arboliva to go against it, but it's Arboliva doesn't have a good match this week, so it's kind of like, is it gonna come? Is it not gonna come? Are you more scared of Suicune? Do you need it for Suicune? And absolutely, they needed it for Suicune. They were threatened by Suicune last week. You saw Thunderbolt coverage on Goldango, as well as just choice specs. Lantern, they were trying to deal with it. They were trying to find a way to deal with it. That's what they were doing. So I wouldn't be surprised if it shows up again, but as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same team. Maybe a little bit different build, but probably it could be the same team, honestly. I think Slitherwing only comes if it wants to be a sweeper. It requires some sort of sun setup, which obviously can't happen with Whimsicott. If Monty researched my team, they know that this is probably a bad bring because I did prep for it a lot last week. But the only other thing I could see it being used for is like the priority user over Quillfish. But Quillfish does that more reliably with Aqua Jet that hits every single turn instead of just the first turn. So I don't really expect Slitherwing this week. If it had another Terra type, maybe. Fire's just unfortunately not that great into the team. But here's what I'm bringing. Here's what we changed, and hopefully we can do something else this week. I'm bringing Hawlucha again. I got to bring Hawlucha again. We got Lock the Hawlucha with Choice Scarf this week. Mold Breaker is its ability. We are max attack, max speed, adamant nature with close combat, Brave Bird, U-turn, and Throat Chop. Hawlucha again is good into this team, and they have to be expecting it because it is good. The only change we made with this set was switching Expert Belt to Choice Scarf, and we swapped Dual Wing Beat for Brave Bird, just for the damage. We got beat last match because we could not outspeed their Choice Scarfers. Well, that is not going to be a problem this week now. Hawlucha is the fastest thing on the field because it has a Choice Scarf of its own. It only gets outsped by Scarf Whimsicott, which, you know, it could be a reality. It's a very weird reality, but it could be something. In case you skipped last week's breakdown, I want Mold Breaker on this set to beat Terapagos because of its ability, which blocks full damage from moves at full HP. Hawlucha guarantees an OHKO as long as it doesn't try to predict a switch again, like I did last week. There was no reason for me not to click close combat there. I should have, might have helped us out a little bit. Probably not, but we might have got a little bit better in differential. Maybe? I don't know. It could have been something. We just clicked the dumb move because we were playing dumb. We also deal with Slitherwing, which with the set, which can be offensive Whimsicott. I don't know why my notes are very weird. We also can deal with Slitherwing with this set, and we can be offensive for Whimsicott if we want to take a paralysis. It's not the worst thing in the world if Hawlucha takes a paralysis. I did think about Limber this week as an option, but Whimsicott basically kills us, so there's no point in that. I do have to say, Scarf does make Hawlucha run Adamant. for Terra. So we no longer really can Revenge Monkey Dory. So we have to be careful of that. But it does give us a guarantee for Terrapagos. We do need to be able to, we can actually Revenge Monkey Dory. It's not as easy to, that's the change. I think it requires about 60% to guarantee a KO. So if we have it at 60%, we can guarantee a KO, which might be a little bit hard to do because of that. I anticipate luck again to be my lead option. I didn't finish writing that sentence for some reason because I was silly. But it's a really good lead option for this week because Choice Scarfers are good lead options. I can do the same thing they're doing with Zapdos, but better with Hawlucha. I come in, I have Choice Scarf, I outspeed. If they see Hawlucha lead, they're probably going to know I'm Choice Scarfed, which is then going to make them think about how to deal with it, which might get them to bring their Choice Scarf users out earlier, which might allow me to get knockoff off, which might allow me to get Darkrai or something else sweep. So that's going to be the hope. Hopefully something works out. But Hawlucha having Choice Scarf guarantees that we do not lose to speed. We're just going to lose to playing bad. So we got to do better this week than we did last week. Next up is Noelle the Suicune with leftovers. I am pressure because I have 248 in HP to play around with Substitute. I have max defense and a little bit of special attack invested with Bold Nature. I'm Scald, Shadow Ball, Calm Mind. I am legitimately running the same set on Suicune as I ran last week. I failed Suicune last week by letting it stay in on Thunderbolt when I literally said Goldengo has it, so that was my bad. We also do so much better if we click sub in order to set up Calm Mind than rather than just attack. I had to think about this through the sequencing of turns when it comes to Suicune and determining if I wanted to take it damage or if I want to set up or I want to deal damage. I like Suicune being an option for a sweeping Slitherwing as well as Ting-Lu. Both things can be burned if things go well with the Scald. If I do get some boosts, we can take on a good part of their team, which I like. But realistically, I need this as a defensive pivot this week, especially versus Goldengo, which gets traps in the moves if it decides to be choiced again. And we did see that last week. We saw that Suicune actually did really well take the Make It Rain. So hopefully we can get something like that again. It does force out the Goldengo. We just have to be a little bit smarter about how we play from there. But at the end of the day, I think we have some ideas on what they like to run now, and maybe we can get through this a little bit better. Next up is Henry the Knuckle Stack with Eviolite. I'm running Purifying Salt, because duh, why would I not? I'm Terra Fighting this week. Max HP, max special defense, and Careful Nature with Salt, Cure, Body Press, Iron Defense, and Body Recover. My first change to my team this week is bringing Knuckle Stack. I did consider it last week. I was a little scared of knockoff, to be honest, but it's absolutely needed this week, and I feel like it's a good option regardless. By investing in special defense, we leave room to boost with Iron Defense for the physical side, making Henry a problem for offense-heavy teams, which punishes my opponent if they don't change their sets. Even without Eviolite, we can take boosts on the physical attackers, and we have Body Press for primary offensive damage. Henry's actually a great matchup against Terrapagos, Ting-Lu, Slitherwing, despite its fear of knockoffs. I want it to be a defensive option that can cause problems for any tanks they decide to bring. Terra Fighting helps our damage output as well, and allows us to play a game with Zapdos if I Terra or if I don't. Fighting type is great against Ting-Lu and great for Terrapagos for more damage against them, but also it stops Earth Power and Earthquake from doing a lot of damage to my rock typing. So fighting just works out really well here. I wanted to run Bug. I was scared of Slitherwing, and we do not beat Slitherwing if we are Terra Bug. But I did think about it, and I really wanted to run it just because you guys said, like, Terra Bug is stupid. It's actually pretty cool Terra for Knuckle Stack. Don't at me. Next up is Asta the Darkrai with Assault Vest this week. Bad Dreams because I have to have it. Max special attack, 184 in speed. This set is actually incorrect. Nope. It's right. I thought I changed it. I didn't change it. Max special attack, 184 speed, a little bit of investment in special on the special side. Timid Nature, Dark Pulse, Sludge Bomb, Focus Blast, and Ice Beam. Yes, I am bringing Darkrai, but I'm not bringing the meme set that we brought last week. Hypnosis has not worked for me, and that's sad. I really want it to work, and honestly, they need to let Darkrai have Dark Void at like 80% accuracy, because 60% for sleep is stupid. That's my little pet peeve. With that, we'll move on. I've opted for Assault Vest this week on our set to surprise the special attackers, meaning Whimsicott doesn't deal with us anymore because Max Special Attack Choice Scarf doesn't even threaten a KO without Terra Fairy. Yeah, I capped it. With Terra Fairy, I don't want to stay in. The good part is we get to know that because we get Terra Preview, so we'll get to see what it's running and we can prep accordingly for it. I have coverage enabling us to deal with any single one of Whimsicott's Terras should it choose to use them. They also go nicely for the other important members of the team since we outspeed everything besides Choice Scarfers. And we can do a lot of damage with Darkrai. I like Darkrai in this matchup for Zoroark too, so it's going to easily catch it on a switch, thinking it's okay to click Focus Blast the next turn. Really, if I want a breaker for Specs users this week, I really wanted a breaker for Specs users this week, and even with Darkrai Special Defense, we're able to squeak out a niche for that this week. I feel like this is a much better than relying on practically a coin flip to see it be useful or not with Sleep, so I wanted to run it instead. And I do feel like Sludge Bomb, Focus Blast, and Ice Beam give us the best coverage options for this team. I really wanted to run Charge Beam in the last slot to try to get some special attack boost, because if I get a special attack boost and I outspeed everything, I wipe everything on the opponent's team, which could be really nice, but I need Ice Beam for the niche that Whimsicott is Terra Ground again, and I feel like that was more reliable than trying to set up and sweep with offense. Next up is Sylph the Clefable with Leftovers. I got Magic Guard as my ability. I am max HP, max defense, a little bit of special attack, and a bold nature. Moonblast, Knockoff, Cosmic Power, and Moonlight is the set this week. Clefable is another repeat from last week with adjustment to its moveset only. I've decided to go Cosmic Power and Moonlight for utility this week. The pair of these moves should allow me to stay in on some hits, set up, and heal stall until we force a switch. Sylph is a counter for Slitherwing if we want to try to sweep, but now I'm able to take on Zapdos, which is critical for my success this week. We stay above half with Brave Bird, which is Zapdos' best move into Clefable, and apparently into the ads as well, which is just fantastic. I hate ads, man. They're terrible. It's like I'm not even trying to get ads. It's just giving me ads. But it can beat Zapdos this week, which is great. I can heal off its damage with Moonlight, and we're playing a little bit of a stall game. It is one that we win because Zapdos dies, I think, after 6 turns or 7 turns, because it will die to recoil damage from Brave Bird. If it's not Scarf and wants to click something else, it's great. I'll set up again and try to live some more hits. I'm keeping Knockoff on the set in case I can force some choice items off this week, because if they have no Scarfers, Darkrai wins. I really wanted to run Thunder Wave for speed control, but I don't expect any Scarfers to stay in long enough for me to make that happen. Instead, I will punish things by when they switch out, they lose their item because they get knocked off. Once Clefable is set up enough, it can take opponent hits from pretty much any opponent, which is really cool with Cosmic Power. I've actually wanted to run this set last week with Mesprit and trying to run Stored Power set. I just couldn't get it to work out correctly. It was a little bit of a tough bring, so I didn't actually get that up, but I do feel like Cosmic Power is great. I don't really need to boost my offenses because we're meant to be more annoying than offensive, and if I can get the utility of them switching out, trying to find a way to deal with Clefable, we're going to be in a good spot. The good part is it kind of forces Intang Lu to click Whirlwind, which is great because I can do a lot of damage with Moonblast naturally. I don't think I put that in my notes, but that is a big thing it can do. I think it does 60% or something like that. We saw Hyper Offense last week from them, and Clefable severely punishes that if we get set up correctly. What that hopefully does is allow Sylph to weaken the team. Remove items that we need to get out of the way, and we can let something else in the back win at the end. As I said, if we get the right situation, we could win anyway if we get like +6. The only thing that would stop us at that point would be crits, and of course that can't happen, but Clefable can sweep. Every week I say it, Clefable can sweep. If you believe me or not, that's up to you, but yeah, this week I'm pushing it a little bit for that to be actually true. Last up is Finral, the Mesprit with Leftovers. I have Levitate as my ability because I have to. I have max HP, max special defense with Careful Nature. I have Knockoff U-Turn, Psycho Cut, and Drain Punch. Last up is Finral, which is my other change to the team this week. At this point, I realize I don't have a check for Monkey Dory. I said that earlier. I don't have a check for Monkey Dory, and I absolutely need it. Unless I see what happened last week with Zapdos, except with Monkey this time. Monkey's a little bit more difficult to run that way because it is a special attacker instead of a physical attacker, but it still can do a lot of work, and yeah, we don't want that to happen. We're running a physical set mostly to counter Monkey Dory, but it also boosts our knockoffs. I've noted in prep this week, last week, and every time that I've fought this team, and anytime I say anything about knockoff, the item removal can win us this game, and I'm trying to capitalize on that with Finral. I have the opportunity to tank any hit and click knockoff against my opponent. Likely, I'll want to get the switch in early from Hawlucha or come in as a defensive option early because I have enough natural bulk to take some hits with max HP. I realize that I'm probably not going to get either Scarfer in a good spot to just straight up remove their item. They're hard to keep on the field, but I do have enough options that if I wait around enough, I could potentially do something to get them in and get a knockoff off. We must ensure that Hawlucha can beat both Monkey Dory and Zapdos, so we're gonna need some chip on Monkey Dory in particular to put that thing in the KO range. If we do remove items, Darkrai should be able to win against both of them, but I need to prioritize the Scarfers as the main thing keeping Darkrai from winning, and I need to assign another win con for the match if I have no way to deal with them. That's the team. Some things for us to mention. The speed control is major in this battle. We saw it last week. And we need to prioritize that again this week, and that's why I'm looking at these Scarfers really closely. The good thing is I'm pretty sure we're going to see another hyper offense variant of this team, trying to get good switches based on typings and those kinds of things. And while I can't really punish the switches, I brought a lot more bulk this week to deal with them, and hopefully that gets us to win in this game. Darkrai is one of the best options we have to win, but it only works if we remove the Scarfers. If you take a shot every time I've said that in this video, you probably be drunk by now and just go to bed after I've finished talking. Hawlucha could win if we get the opponents down to the right percentages, but with choice, it's a little bit tricky. As for any of our setup options this week, we can win by sheer dumb luck, as Professor McGonagall would say. Ultimately, this match is going to be moving the pieces around so we get what we need at the end of the match, which is the key in every match, but it's critical that I'm accessing how we win and how we lose every single turn, because that'll determine what I do, what Pokemon I need to switch in, and if I need to stay in or not. There is the potential that I'm going to have to do a lot of sacks just to get the pieces in the right spot, and I have to be doing the right sacks. As I said last week, losing Suicune with that Thunderbolt, that was terrible. Clicking wrong moves on telegraph switches and telegraph stay-ins was not great. Not my finest battling moment, to say the least. I mean, we still got a 3-0, which is still pretty good, considering that a lot of matches in this league are a lot worse than that, at least on paper, but they are tight matches, all of them that I've at least been a part of this season in one way or another. I just gotta hope we have the right pieces. As I said, this is not the match I want for week 1 of playoffs, because we did lose to this team, and losing to a team in regular season's one thing, but meeting a team that you lost to in playoffs, it can put a chip on your shoulder. But out of the teams we lost to, this is probably my hardest matchup, and I know that because I don't have good ways to deal with them. It might just be the hardest team I have to fight the whole season, and you know, if we lose here, go to Monte. He's played a great season. If we win here, great. I think we have a good shot to go all the way at that point. I think this is our biggest obstacle right now. Definitely is, because it's now or never. But you never like seeing a team you lost to in playoffs, because there's always that you already lost to them once. What's to say you're not going to lose again? We're going to play with a chip on our shoulder, though. We're going to try our best. I think I've brought the right set again this week. I do feel like we made some mistakes last week with the prep. I think that some things work in some cases, but not in others. And the biggest thing was we just let Zapdos win, and I'm not doing that this week. So if I do anything, at least we're stopping Zapdos. So hopefully we have the right pieces. Hopefully we have everything correct, and we can just get a nice little dub. Ultimately, I want to see first turn Hawlucha versus Zapdos, and Zapdos die to a Brave Bird. But you gotta think, what am I trying to do with Hawlucha? Am I trying to do? Well, at that point, he might think I'm a focus sash shut, and he might U-turn. So The Haluch is a little bit of a mind game turn one. I think it's still a good lead option. If we don't see Zapdos for some reason or other, I might try to go Fenrir as the lead. I think it also can be a good lead option, especially because it's got U-turn to switch out. But we're gonna have to see what happens. I don't expect, if Zapdos doesn't come, I would be more shocked than Tinglu not coming. Honestly, it's just such a good Pokemon for the team this week. Unfortunately, I was thinking about it. I'm like, despite it having Defiant, I really wish I had I really wish I had Sticky Webs on this team to deal with it, because I think it could actually do some work to stop it this week. But that's team for quarterfinals. As I said last week, I'm going to be looking into some of those changes. I'm going to look into that Dene set again, because I don't think it comes, but I want to be prepared for anything. So if you see something a little bit different with the set, just know that I saw that and I needed to deal with it. But we'll take a look at what we can do, and hopefully we get ourselves in a good spot to just win. But who knows? It's Draft League. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. Make sure to like button and subscribe down below. Let me know what you think of the team in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. If there's something you would have brought that I haven't brought either week, let me know. At some point in time, every single member of this team was on the team. I was very close to bringing both Iron Treads and Zoroark again, but I do feel like the switches with Knucklesack and Mesprit are just the ways to go. I really wanted to use Arboliva. I've been wanting to use Arboliva this whole season. I thought this week it could work, but it's a very risky play, and I don't want to play risky right now. I want to try to secure the bag as best as possible, so we're trying to play safe as we can. And I think this team gives us the best chance at dealing with most of the things that he's going to want to throw at us. So hopefully that's what we got, and it's enough. So that is all I have for you today. Make sure you check out my links in the description down below. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so, because the match does come out tomorrow. You're going to want to see it. It could be our last match of the season. It could be our first step to the championship, but who knows? You have to find out tomorrow. So thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. Until next time, my name is Chaos, your coach of the Detroit Red Wingulls. We'll see you next week for the quarterfinals. Until then, stay safe, and as always, burn it up.